Exercise 708 is going to allow us to define, actually to refine the class course and to use it from another Java file. So we are going to start by the boilerplate code. Okay. Here is the class course as it is defined already in your textbook. So I just reuse the code as is in the listing. And here is the file A708.java, which is going to allow us right now just to test that the class course is working as expected. So we create here we create a new course, programming concepts, store reference to that object inside the variable COP2510. We add students, okay. We display the enrollment figure by calling the get numbers of student method, and then we display the listing of all student names that are in that course by creating here a variable student of type reference to an array of string, and assigning to that reference variable the return value of get student, which return a reference to the array containing all the student names. And then we just iterate through this array and we display every student name. So it's really boilerplate code, and we're going to just run it to test it. So Java C, and you will notice that I use a joker character here, star.java, which means any file finishing in Java, so that includes in our directory e708.java and course.java, so that you might find that practical instead of typing all the time the name of all the files. And we run this program. Here is the class enrollment, here is the class roster. It's correct based on the information we entered in the class. So we are going to move on to the next step. The next step, which is the focus of this exercise, is we want to have, right now we have a class course which can hold, and I'm going to pop up code right now, it can hold 100 students. Well, what happens if you keep adding students to to a course? Well, every time you add a student, you increment number of students. So if you add more than 100 students, you have an array out of bound exception. There is a very easy way to check that. Let's say that the size of the array is 2 instead of 100. That's going to make it a lot easier for us to test. I'm trying to add 5 students to that class, so let's see what happens when I have only 2 slots. It compiles alright, okay, it's going to be a runtime problem. I run it, exception in thread main, blah 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 blah, array index out of bounds exception 2. So when we reach array index 2, element 0, element 1 are okay, element 2 is the third element of the array, my array is of size 2, we are done. There is an exception. So what we need to do now is, as every time we try to add a student, we need to first check that we are not going over the limit of our current array students. And if we are, we need to pretty much reallocate a new array student to contain all of the names that we have right now, and with room for more. So this is something that was done already as an example in the textbook, okay, in the assigned chapter. We are just going to adapt it to this class. So here's the logic of the code. First, if number of students is greater or equal than students dot length. Alright, when this happens, let me indent it correctly here. When this happens, we know that we have to reallocate something. Alright? If if we are still within limits, we can proceed with our regular handling of adding a student. That is, we store the name of that student as the correct array slot, and then we increment number of student. I'm not using an else here because what's going to happen here is that if the situation calls for a reallocation, I'm going to do the reallocation, and then after that, everything will work just as normal. So how do I reallocate a new array? Well, I need a variable, let's call it TMP, of type reference to an array of string, and I'm going to create a new array of string. How big do I make it? Well, it's up to you. Okay, I would take student length, the current length of the array, and multiply it by 2. Okay, this is a reasonable, well, reasonable. This is an acceptable assumption. Every time my array is saturated, I just double its size. It's not enough to double the size. You need now to copy the content of the current array inside the new one. System.arrayCopy. So I'm taking this from the textbook, okay? I want to copy from the array student at index 0 to the array TMP at index 0. and I want to copy how many entries, student.length. And once this is done, students equal TMP. Remember that here we are not copying an array, we're just manipulating reference. So this exercise is actually very good at referring you back to your reading assignment so that you make sure you understand the difference between a reference variable and a variable which actually contains data. Okay. Here, when we write students equal TMP, we assign the reference to an array held in TMP to the variable, the reference variable students, but we do not copy any array whatsoever. That explains why we have to use different methods to copy actually the content of an array. Let's try to save this, and let's see how it fares when we try to run it this time. Recompile. Compilation error. Number of students, the O should be uppercase. This is located in my if statement. So let's go back there. Course.java, in my if statement, number of student here, uppercase O. Save. Back to Conqueror. Java C, compiles all right this time. Try to run it. The enrollment is 5 when everything is run. My class roster, all the names are stored. The only thing I'm curious about is what is the size of the array at that point. Well, there is one way to figure this out. Okay, it's not really critical, but you go to this class and you add here, I'm not going to do it, I'm going to leave it as an exercise, but you could easily add here a get method, which is going to return the size of the student array. I wouldn't recommend to leave that in the final version of your code. That's why I don't want to introduce it in this correction right here. But this is just one of those methods that's going to allow you to make sure that your array size expanded by twice the size each time. So we added our 2 first student. All right, the array size was 2. Then suddenly it became 4, and we added the next 2 student. And then in order to make room for the last student, we added an array size that was 8 at the time we were done. Always double the current size. And beside this little double check that you will have to complete by yourself, this is the final code for the class course modified as requested by exercise 708.